Here we are, where Dan and Aiden are in a junk room talking about sin. Welcome to Grace Church. I'm glad that you're here.
It's going to be a good
Stay
podcast.
as long as you like. We're in the story of God, chapter 2.
The disorganization in here is a result of sin.
It is sinful. It is. This is the junk drawer of the church building. I organize our junk drawer in our house, but it's just that's not the point of a junk drawer. Do you have a junk drawer at your house?
I organize ours too.
Ours doesn't open. Like the kids get mad. Like, why doesn't this open? I'm like, you're because of yourself.
Because it's full of junk.
It's full of junk. We are in chapter 2. We kind of kicked off this week, creation and conflict, right? Where God created this good world. Created, said it was good. Sin enters the picture, Genesis 3, which we go back to Genesis 3 in a lot of messages. Genesis 3 is this prototype, this template, this kind of, all of it, this origin story for so much that we see wrong in the world, complete with fruit, talking snakes, all this, which people can read it and be like, now what is going on? Mm-hmm. We were sitting in our grace group this week and we read through all of chapter 3, and we just looked at, what do you see the serpent saying? How do you see humans reacting? And how do you see God responding?
That's good. Yeah.
And just kind of processing through that and kind of how do we see these same things now played out. But some of the conversations I'll have with people sometimes, or I think maybe we can subtly think about, is there can be this tension between the reality of sin. So Genesis 3 kind of gives us this story that happened, and it's kind of this template. What were the ways, how did you say it? The bite,
We said the voice in the garden, the bite at the tree, and then the cover-up plan.
Yeah, and so you see those realities play out. But sometimes here's the reality, and it can kind of forfeit personal responsibility. Like we can be like, oh, well, that's the story, and so we don't see our own sin. And for others of us, maybe we just see our own sin, the things that we do wrong. But we don't have a greater picture of sin from Genesis 3 and how that plays out. How do we live in the tension of the reality of sin, like the story, the origin of sin, the to use your language on Sunday, the atmosphere, and then our own personal responsibility that we are sinners, because it could be easy to fall on one side of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fact that we sin because we're sinners.
Yeah.
Okay, so we say that all the time, and it's not original with us. I don't know who it's original with, but
Probably me.
We're not sinners because we sin.
Yeah.
So the reality of the story explains us to us, explains me to you, you to me, and me to me. But I think when you can fall on one of two sides with that, you can fall on the side of futility or blindness.
Yeah.
So one is it opens my eyes. I'm not blind to the fact I'm a sinner, so I'm sin. But futility, I'm a sinner. I'm just going to sin, so I might as well just whatever.
Yeah.
Erases out of the story the presence of a holy God, the presence of a divine solution, and I think it writes out of the story that someday, as sinners who sin, we'll stand in front of a holy, righteous God.
Yeah.
And that holy, righteous God is also merciful, kind, and gracious, and provided a solution. And so I guess within our human choice, we have the choice and freedom to be futile about it or blind to it. But his story gives us the opportunity for our eyes to be open to it, and also that there's a solution to it. The fact that we swim in a story of sin doesn't excuse us from the sin that we're responsible for.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say? I feel like a lot of, if we're being honest, sometimes the conversation around sin, everyone knows there's something wrong. No one is turning on the news, walking through relational turmoil and being like, this is awesome. This is how it should be going. And everybody, are there different, in your conversations with people, because for some people, the idea of sin feels a little like a TV show, can feel kind of antiquated, can feel like maybe too easy of an answer. Well, it's just sin. It can feel too easy. We kind of knocked this around our grace group the other night. What are some of the stories that you've maybe heard or conversations you have with people on? So if it's not sin, what is our problem then? Why is the world the way it is? Why are we unsettled with all these things? Because if you said this Sunday, if we have the problem wrong, the solution's wrong. What are some of the other problems that you maybe heard or that you think the stories people can believe about sin, about what's wrong?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think people fundamentally believe in sin. I think the issue is they believe whether they call it sin or not, they believe fundamentally the problem is probably them.
Yeah.
So we got to fix that. So it's if we just had a certain program, it would be fixed, or an ideology, a political ideology was in play, it would be fixed, or education reform, things like that. So people recognize there's a problem. I would say more times than not, we see the problem is there that can be fixed programmatically. If it had a different system in play, it would fix it. So there's an organizational problem. We just need better leadership. Sometimes we think technological advancement would fix the deal. The problem is all of those fall short.
Yeah.
Particularly when the stain is inside of us, you know what I'm saying? And so even the solutions are stained.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the process. But I would say that it becomes easy to buy into those false stories, because you kind of think, man, if we just get that person in office, we just get that reform, that program kind of executed, then everything's going to be better.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get disenfranchised and futile, because they get their person in office and it doesn't go away. They get the program and it's like, well, there's still, it's the never ending.
Even
problem.
in our personal lives, if I had this relationship, I wouldn't be lonely. If I had that job, I wouldn't be so unhappy. If my wife, my husband just acted this way, it wouldn't cause me to be. There's always a if this, then that, and there's on the other side of that, stick with the carrot on the end as always.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's why even religion doesn't work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, religion is just like one more program. So, you hear the term legalism. If I just patch enough things together, but I can't get away from the problem is still there.
And that's true for, we talk about religion and legalism, you can think of like, I don't know, some old and gone, but those things show up today. If I could just get the right morning routines, if I could just have the right cultural awareness, you know what I mean? If I could just have the right view of the situation, then it's almost these salvation stories, but we have the sin problem wrong. You know, because I'm not enlightened. I'm not experiencing what I should experience. What would you say? Sometimes in maybe there's all these different tensions, right? Sometimes in church land, if you grew up in a religious background at all, there can be maybe differing sides of like oversimplification. So some of those things you mentioned are important things, whether it be education, whether it be those important things to talk about, policies, programs.
Programs.
Say the word program.
What did I say? Programs?
I just want to hear you say it. Say program.
Program.
Program is a fun word.
I didn't even know that I said that word.
There was a word. What did we hear you say? Oh, what word was it? Robot?
Yeah.
Every once in a while there's a new word. It's
I
fun.
say robot or something. Probably not. Yeah,
fun.
I know.
Anyways, that's my sin nature coming out there.
Sinful nature coming out.
Sometimes there's real problems to talk about. You know what I mean? Whether it's a political issue, a social issue, a personal issue, there's like things that need addressed. Sometimes we can kind of just, and I've had conversations like this, well, we're all just sinners. We're all just sinners. And so it can kind of become this defense against my personal responsibility. What would you say to someone who kind of, that's the attitude, like, oh, you look at the world and you're like, it's just sin, and it feels more like an idea than something that I'm contributing to, or something that I can, like you answered at first, that I have a role in some way. Like, what would you say to someone that on one side has that world sinful is what it is kind of feudal mentality, and then maybe the other side of someone that feels all the weight and responsibility to, like, almost like there will never be peace because in my lifetime I can't fix or help things. Like, speak to those two people that might have those different stories or paradigms that they're holding on to.
Yeah, I mean, well, assuming in your illustration, this person is somebody who would profess to be a follower of Jesus. Yeah. I guess the thing that came to my mind when you were asking that, we didn't necessarily prep these questions before, but is that if they're a follower of Jesus, I think I would think to myself, look to Jesus. He wasn't futile about it.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it broke his heart. When he saw people that were kind of in the middle of this, like I think of John 11, even at the tomb of his good buddy.
Mm-hmm.
It says that before he wept with him, he got angry.
Yeah.
He had this visceral reaction, and I think it was over the consequences and infiltration of sin in the world. And so if as a follower of Christ, I'm like, man, if I'm going to follow Jesus, I'm not just be futile and apathetic about it.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be Pollyannish about that the solution to what I see going on is something other than it is.
Yeah.
And so I think I can have a peace and a confidence when my heart is anchored to Christ, because that is the solution, as I follow him into a world full of sin, not apathetically, but as not just his follower, but I think 2 Corinthians 5 says as his ambassador.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there's this God wanting to reconcile the world to himself. Yeah. And it's like, did you know?
There's the quote by, is it Chesterton, who says, "What's wrong with the world?" And he says, "I am." Mm-hmm. It does make me think. I was just listening to someone talking. It's very easy to see sin, like you said, in the other person, in the other party, in the other situation, in the person in the conflicted relationship. But it's easy to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater when things become too big or too far off. I don't have personal responsibility for it. So the problems on that side of the world, the problems in the government, the problems with the culture, they could be these out there ideas. Mm-hmm. And we can hide behind those things and not take personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, Jesus dealt with all those things, but on the Sermon on the Mount, he's like, if your eye causes you to lust, if you have hate in your heart, and he gets real, like he's talking to you, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And so it becomes easy to hide behind these big ideas of sin. And when you talk about the having hope in Jesus, but then following Jesus, oftentimes that causes me to take personal responsibility as I actively, because it's easy and it's safe to complain or be anxious about these far off things. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more work and it's a lot less comfortable. But we feel like those things aren't connected to the big picture. Mm-hmm. But I can only begin with controlling myself. The problem is me, and as I kill sin in my own life, the impact that has, it's just easier to stay worried about the bigger things than the immediate things.
Yeah, I think it's safer to sit and complain and gripe about what we see going on. We use these buzzwords, culture and society today. Mm-hmm. And we're actually going to talk about that a little bit this week. Maybe, but, you see the progression of sin. It starts with, sin starts with this just personal choice and failure that leads to relational breakdown that eventually evolves into this saturation of societal. It's like every inclination of the heart is evil, Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's easy to, in our day, just focus on that. Everything's going to pot and not back that thing up and say, start here. Mm-hmm. And then when I have where's the relationship breakdowns that I have, right? Jesus said when there's relationship breakdowns, why don't you look in before you look out, things like that. Yeah. And so I think, and then when I think about how does that impact society, well, he said this, why don't you be salt and light, like maybe season the culture that you're in. And so, I think sometimes we're looking for this quick fix. The truth is, if I don't look inside, every fix is going to be skewed by my own sinful nature. Yeah. It's just going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those pieces are always avoided. You're like, what's wrong? All these things. Now, obviously, I don't. It is very... And the things that are going great in the world? The things that I like. Yeah. Like, that's how I am all the time,
Yeah.
So we're going to keep talking about this. It's almost like this chapter of the story we're looking at in this, and we were kind of joking about it, is it's so pervasive in our group when we're talking about this. We have to let this story, these maps, what are the lies that Satan is telling us? And how are those the same lies that show up in our ears today? And so the pervasiveness from socio levels to global levels to personal levels to internal, like sin, how do you say it on Sunday? It's an atmosphere. It leads to an action. How did you say it? I said it.
It starts as an atmosphere that creates an attitude that leads to an action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think about all those things, like the atmosphere of sin, the attitudes of my own heart, to the like all those things. And so we're going to keep kind of picking through this. And I encourage you, if you're not in a group, if there's not a conversation, if you're part of the Norton campus, that there's such an opportunity to not just dialogue about these things, but to hold one another accountable and to move one another towards identifying the lies. I was talking to someone this week or today that was saying, yeah, that's the voice of the snake. I think I can handle this, but that's the same voice. And when we have one another to kind of push one another towards Christ, towards truth. I know one of the questions you've asked before when you meet with people is, what's the lie I'm believing that has caused me to go this way? And so we do that in community together.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's so easy to, and I think this is, you talked about the fact, Genesis 3, we always point back to, Genesis 1, 2, and 3 are absolutely pivotal to the rest of the story. That's why we're spending a lot of time in them, obviously. And I think when it comes to this, if we don't know our way into this, we'll get the wrong way out. Yeah. And I love that the way out involves a God whose heart of kindness and grace pursues us. In his grace, asks us where we're at, because there is a cover-up plan, but it's not what I did, it's what he did. Yeah. And I love that, but that won't make sense if I don't understand how I got here. If Genesis 3, if I don't get Genesis 3, I'm not going to understand that. Yeah. And I'm going to think the way out something different.